Welcome to another episode of Yesterday's Capers. I'm Abdullah Moallim, and every week I'll be bringing you the very best shows from the past that the world has to offer. This week, we take a special look back at some of the most iconic British stop-motion cartoons as we put Fireman Sam up against Joshua Jones. And we take a special look at Postman Pat, and yes, we'll talk about the brilliant theme song. Did it reach number 1 in the charts? You'll soon find out. And we'll decide which of the 3 shows had the best theme song. We may be locked in our houses and social distancing, but we're still here to bring you the very best shows that the world has to offer. So, let's get started. And joining me as ever, but in different locations, it's producer Paul.
Hey man, how's it going?
I'm alright. It's going to be quite an interesting dynamic with us being in 2 different places.
It's a bit weird. I mean, I haven't got my webcam sorted out yet, so I can see you, but you can't see me, which is
Oh dear.
But I think I can't believe how crazy. I think we were talking last week, like how quickly this whole thing's developing. I just can't believe it. Now we're in lockdown.
Pretty much, because do you know what the mad thing was? I remember when you was telling me when we finished recording last time, you was like, maybe take some of the equipment just in case things change. And then literally that same night, Boris Johnson does the whole speech where it's like, yeah, you can't go anywhere and see people.
That's just because people weren't paying any attention of for their own safety. Don't go out. Don't do this and that. Everyone's just like down the park having a party.
I know, it was just ridiculous.
I haven't left the house for 2 days now. I've been stuck indoors, but I count as a key worker, so I'll be working tomorrow.
Oh dear.
Which is quite annoying. But over this weekend, I managed to get my work from home setup done.
Me too, actually.
Never had an office, but I've got a dartboard and a nice office on the go now.
Yes, I did like the picture you sent me this morning. And I've had to set up a little something as well for the pod and work as well, because I think we're going to be having regular calls and weekly checkups and all of that stuff. So it's I had to just rearrange my room a little bit and turn it into some kind of office workspace.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
I know. I think the only time I've gone out this last week was just to pick up my sister from work. That's it.
That's crazy.
Because I went to the shops on Monday and Tuesday, and that's it. Other than that, I've not been out.
Oh, it just reminded me. I was working on Friday, and I work in the city of London. So there was obviously it's completely dead. There was just me and some police officers walking around, and I needed a few bits kind of just basics like bread and things like that.
Yeah.
So I went into Waitrose, and as soon as I walked in there, the guy, I thought he was telling me off, the guy, but he said, "Listen, anything on today or tomorrow's date is 39p."
Okay.
And the shop was full to the brim of things. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to fill my boots. I mean, it's going to look like I'm panic buying, but I'm not. This is just 39p.
Yeah, but it's 39p for a reason.
No, I mean, it's just because it's what it is because they don't have any footfall during the weekend. So they have to get rid of it. Okay. I'm not even sure if they open, to be fair. So they were just chucking it out and I was lapping it up.
Good stuff. Well, I'm glad you got your essentials. So I think I might have to pop out tomorrow, just over the road, really, and just pick up 1 or 2 things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we may be in different locations, but we're still bringing Yesterday's Capers, and we move. That's it. We move. And let's get started with it. And gonna start with Postman Pat. And we're going back to September 1981. Again
1981. Wow.
and again. But you know what, right? We've got new listeners and we're getting new listeners all the time. All right. Shout out to my new listeners. You guys are coming from all around the world. So you might not know what happened in September 1981. And I'm here to tell you what happened in September 1981. So here goes. And obviously, for OG listeners, you guys probably know this already, but you're going to hear it again. John Carter, a 35-year-old unemployed stonemason from New Rochelle, New York, became the first person to parachute onto the World Trade Center. Carter jumped from a plane at an altitude of 10,000 feet, then guiding himself to landing on the observation deck on Tower 2. Simon and Garfunkel reunited to perform at the concert in Central Park, a free concert in New York in front of approximately 500,000 people. Do you know Simon and Garfunkel? Are you aware of their works?
Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of Simon and Garfunkel.
I'm actually quite surprised to hear that. I'm not.
I mean,
Because they're about as white as you can get, really.
no, exactly. I was going to say that, but in a roundabout way. I didn't really know how to kind of put it.
For the first time, China launched 3 satellites into orbit on a rocket from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. The feat led some observers to speculate that China had gained ability to launch multiple nuclear warheads, or that it had set up an early warning system against missile attacks. Chariots of Fire was in the cinemas, and Japanese Boy by Anika was #1 in the charts.
That is one of my most all-time favourite songs ever. How
do you know this song?
Do you know how I know this song? Straight up. It's from Grand Theft Auto Vice City, from when I was growing up. This was on, what was that channel called? The 80s pop channel on. There's only one station. Do you know
VH1, isn't it?
No, do you know they used to have their own little pop stations, right? They used to have their own, but they used to play music from the actual decade. Yeah, it was Japanese Boy and Video Killed the Radio Star used to play back to back.
Wow, this is crazy. This is going to be a crazy episode. You know Simon and Garfunkel. You know Japanese Boy. I mean, it's a hella catchy song.
It is.
And it is like one of those, like, if you look up one-hit wonders in the dictionary, it'll be this poor lady and the song Japanese Boy. But no, it
was a cracking one-hit wonder, though.
It was a cracking one-hit wonder. I think she spent the rest of her career trying to follow up, but I'm not sure it quite happened. But she'll have Japanese Boy now and forever. Right, okay, so let's talk about Postman Pat. You know what I'm going to do for all the shows today?
Go on.
I'm just going to leave the theme song. I don't care if I get sued. Take my money. I'm just gonna let Postman Pat roll. Love this song. It's a classic, iconic, and enjoy. So, Postman Pat is a British stop-motion animated children's series that was first produced by Woodland Animations. It follows the adventures of Pat Clifton, a postman in the fictional village of Greendale, and the nearby town of Pencaster, which is on the border between Cumbria and North Yorkshire, hence the accents. It was John Cunliffe who wrote the original treatment and scripts. John Cunliffe, if you remember from Rosie and Jim. It was directed by animator Ivor Wood, who also worked on The Magic Roundabout, The Wombles, Paddington Bear, and The Herbs. And yeah, it follows the adventure of Pat Clifton, He was a friendly country postman, and of course, with his black and white cat, Jess, as he delivers the post through the valley of Greendale. And obviously, because he's a postman and that's his first job, but he ends up always getting caught up by the concerns of one of the villagers, and he's always on hand to resolve their problems. And when John Cunliffe was interviewed, he said that he chose the character of a postman because he needed a character who could visit the countryside and interact with many different people. And inspiration for the post office itself in Postman Pat comes from one located on the Kendall Street where Cunliffe lived when he was writing the original treatment. The post office at 10 Greenside closed in 2003. And this is actually quite a sad story when it concerns John Cunliffe because he didn't retain the rights to the character. And so basically, the people who were making it, they could do what they want with Postman Pat. They could develop it. They could do what they want. And John Cunliffe really couldn't do anything. And I think that was why he came up with Rosie and Jim, because it was something that he could have control over, and it wasn't something that he gave up. See, that's the thing. Like, he probably thought, you know what? I'm gonna write this amazing thing, this amazing concept about a postman, and someone came and said, right, here you go. Here's some money. Let us have the rights. And he probably thought, oh shoot, I'm gonna make some money, living the dream. But he gave away his thing, and was it worth it? I don't know. Because, like, I know as far as I'm concerned, when I use my own personal example, like, I'm going to say it now on the record. I will never, ever give away this podcast or this idea, this concept. Never, 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 never. You people can offer me a billion. I would rather go broke than have someone have my idea and then take it to another level and switch it up and change it. Because that's like, I think he even died with that regret. Like, Postman Pat was my thing, but it's not my thing anymore because it belongs to the media rights, and it belongs to I don't know, whoever. What
Big
do you
wigs
have to
and
say about
corporations.
that? Yeah,
I
corporation, exactly.
well, I'm just thinking the only thing that comes to mind really is that when you were saying, I won't sell this, I won't sell this, it's just like obviously your intellectual property is like very personal thing, right? Um,
Exactly.
unless you're just just creating stuff to sell, that's slightly
Mm,
different. But I mean, like if you look at George Lucas,
yeah,
he was like he really didn't want to have to go to a studio when he sold Star Wars for the first time, but he had no choice. But what he did was retain the rights to make his own, to make the films himself, and also to for the merchandising and stuff like that. And
yeah,
if he hadn't have retained that, Star Wars is like a multi-billion pound, franchise now. And if he hadn't have done that, imagine Star Wars wouldn't have been the same. We wouldn't have had the same uh experience with the whole Star Wars franchise.
yeah,
So it's a bit of a shame, like, when people do come in and just like, for want of a better word, just steal stuff off people just because they haven't like filled in a bit of paper or haven't read the small print in the
yeah.
contract or something like that. It just seems so dirty.
It does. But from what I got and the impression is that, yeah, he knowingly sold it, but it was one of those where, oh, should I have done that?
Yeah, yeah.
Should I have not taken the money? Should I have just kept my thing? That
Yeah.
was that was his big thing. I don't think it
On the
was that he was duped or hoodwinked. Maybe he was. Maybe
yeah.
that's why he's so mad. but he sold it and he regretted it because obviously once you give up control, that's it. No going back. It doesn't belong to you anymore. And
But
so his thing was, okay, whatever. I'm just gonna give up on this Postman Pat thing, and I'm gonna make my own thing, Rosie and Jim. It's
but
might
but
not be stop
maybe
motion, but it's ragdolly, and yeah,
but maybe if he hadn't, have sold it to, I don't know who bought it, but say I'm gonna say a corporation because that's probably the most likely. If he hadn't have done that, then maybe we wouldn't have had Postman Pat in the same way as we've experienced today. Maybe it wouldn't have been as big. Maybe
yeah,
the world wouldn't have had Postman Pat as as this big,
yeah.
huge TV show, kids TV show. We
Mhm.
we just would have been without it, and it would have been the next thing or whatever. So
True.
kind of on the other side of it, I guess is where we benefit from the fact that he had to sell it.
Yeah. And also the reason why I said it's so sad is because apparently like John Cunliffe got bullied as a kid and he found it tough. His upbringing was tough. And part of the reason was of making Postman Pat was he wanted to create a character that would be beloved in his village. It's set in a small area. Everybody knows everybody. Everyone's lovely. You got this lovely postman who's driving around. He's delivering everybody's letters. He helps people when they have their problems, whether it's looking for a kid's doll, whether it's everybody not knowing his birthday and then they all figure it out in the end. It was just this whole idea that he built this world. He built this lovely world where he's like Postman Pat is like part of this dream place that maybe he wishes that he lived in as a kid or even in his adult life. And that was partly one of the reasons why he made Postman Pat because he created a world that he wished he lived in. And so that was maybe the reason why he was so upset because he created this world where everything was nice, everything was lovely, but he gave it away maybe, and he was like, why would I give away a dream world that I created just for a few quid?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you do have to make that decision. Do I want to keep the lights on, or do I sell my,
Yeah,
or do I not sell my baby sort of thing?
yeah.
Not real baby. Don't get in a tis internet.
I think they know what you mean. And yeah, there was this really good Guardian article from 1994, which was Postman Pat creators Greendale was his perfect village. And so, yeah, some of the things that the article said, and I quote, after being bullied as a child, John Cunliffe constructed a community where everyone was happy, an imaginary refuge, but when he sold the rights to his creation, it was paradise lost. He has moved on, leaving Pat in the hands of those who have adopted him. He's working in a new world now, where two little rag dolls called Rosie and Jim live on a barge together. They are happy and they look after each other. Nobody bullies them or takes their things. It is a vision of perfection. So I guess in what he lost, he gained in Rosie and Jim.
Yeah,
So yeah, maybe it worked out in the end for John Cunliffe.
I think so. I mean, look, Rosie and Jim was a fantastic little kids
Yeah.
masterpiece, any as well. It probably doesn't get the same reputation as Postman Pat, but you
Mm,
to me, I think that Rosie and Jim is up there. I mean, I completely enjoyed
I
Rosie and
agree.
Jim. Um,
100%. I mean, Rosie and Jim is so iconic.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those burning things of my childhood is Rosie and Jim.
Yeah, I think to be honest, Rosie and Jim more so than Postman Pat. I didn't watch as much Postman Pat as I did Rosie and Jim
Did
for
you
sure.
not?
No, I think obviously I knew Postman Pat. I remember my
Yeah.
dad singing me the theme tune. I remember like watching it, but I didn't watch it as much as Rosie and Jim. That I know
Wow.
for sure.
Because what was I going to say? Because I had the books as a kid. Used to
Yeah.
watch Postman Pat. Like Postman Pat is royalty. It is up there in terms of British cartoons. You don't get. It's one of those where it is incredibly iconic, incredibly memorable, and I think you mentioned the theme song. So it's called Postman Pat and his black and white cat, and it was sung by Ken Barry for the original series in the 80s and the 90s. And the extended version of the song was released as a single in the UK in 1982. Now, do you think it went to number one in the charts?
Oh, it's got to have done at some point, hasn't it? Surely.
You're going to say yes.
Yeah.
It didn't.
Ah,
It reached number 44
really, that surprises me
in July 1982.
only because it's so like
Yeah.
it's so catchy and so. But I guess in those days it's people buying the records, right? Or is it
Mm.
plays?
Well, you know how it is. I think it was like, yeah, the top 40 would be determined by who bought the most songs of that week.
Yeah, and
But
I
I
guess
didn't actually see if it had a higher chart position
mm,
because it could have easily have gone up,
yeah.
and it
I
should go up by all means.
I just think it would have been like one of those. If it was in the internet generation, it would have been number one for sure. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those where you know all the words, you know all the ad libs. So when it's like, maybe you can never be sure when you knock, ring, ring, letters through your door. Dum dum dum, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white cat. Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, Pat feels he's a really happy man. Ah, just it's one of those ways it's burning. But you know what? This week it is every show has an incredible theme song that is like resonates and like it beams in my childhood. It's like it's so memorable. It's like burning, flashing memories. Love
Yeah.
it.
I wonder how. I wonder if Postman Pat had an effect on the job applications to the post office because it's properly like licensed, isn't it? Like proper post
Yeah.
office. Like
I know, Royal Mail right on the van. It's like maybe before or after Margaret Thatcher sold it off. But yeah, I don't know why I brought that up. It's none of my business. Far be it from me to dunk on the Tories. I don't know why I brought that up. So yeah, you got notable villagers, obviously including Postman Pat. I think Mrs. Goggins is the one that runs the post office. You got Alf and Dorothy Thompson. You got PC Selby. Sarah Clifton, that's the name of his wife. Jeff Pringles is a teacher. AJ Baines is the driver of the Greendale Rocket and Pencaster Flyer. Nisha Baines, who's the owner of the CAF. And you got the local handyman and inventor Ted Glynn. And then I think you got the two twin kids, which I can't remember their name. It was like a boy and a girl. But no, like Postman Pat is like I said, I had the books as a kid, used to read them all, used to watch this at home, at school, when it was like wet play. They just put on reruns of Postman Pat. In fact, all of the shows today like would be heavily shown on wet play when we can't obviously go outside if it's raining. That's for the benefit of non-British kids. That's what wet play meant. We weren't allowed to go outside when it was raining, and they would just put on either educational programs or they would put on Postman Pat and some of the other shows that we talk about. So, shall we go into episodes?
Yeah, so this is the one I watched the least out of all three today, I think. Um,
Really?
yeah,
It's
I
the special.
I couldn't find a free version of the. Do you know that they rebooted it?
It was all over YouTube.
Yeah, no, but do you know like the reboot, the special,
Yeah,
mate?
yeah, yeah.
What's it called? Special delivery, or whatever it's called.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't find the special delivery reboot on it.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't watch any of those. I didn't
okay,
even
good.
bother to look, but everything else was pretty much on there.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
would
So
have.
yeah, I did watch. Watched a good couple of episodes, and um, one thing there's two things. Okay, first of all, I found the characters' names didn't come up that often. Like the other ones, they would call the character's name
Yeah,
quite often. You know, be
yeah,
like Sam or Elvis or whoever it is. You know,
yeah.
and then on this one, they don't. They're just like, all right, all right, and then it's just like, what's his name? Please say his name. And also I know I learned something that I hadn't known before. Maybe everyone did. I don't know, but I learned that Jess is a boy cat, not a girl cat.
Is it?
Yeah, he said something like, "I'll move up, Jess. That's a good boy," or something like that.
I
I was like,
swear Jess is a girl.
I was in one of the episodes, and it was in the episode.
I
Actually,
could
I
have
don't know.
sworn there was one where he's like, easy girl.
Right. Should we have a quick Google of it?
I want to know. I actually want to know. It's one of the rare times I don't mind about the Google.
Right. Okay. So I'm just having a quick time. Jess, the protagonist and host of the series, is a young black and white. He is a young black and white cat. Oh, talking black and white cat. He doesn't talk, does he?
Well, not really. So he is a boy.
Jess is a boy. Yeah. Um, I'm
Damn.
glad you didn't know that because I thought it'd be one of those everyone knows it apart from me.
Well, no. Here's
The
me
thing is,
thinking he's a lad. Like, no, sorry, he's a girl.
I mean, I still have a sister called Jess, but so obviously growing up, Jess is always a
Here you
girl's name.
go.
So I was like, yeah, until today, I didn't know that.
Man. Well,
Um,
I didn't either. Shoot.
right, going straight into episodes then. So you're gonna have to forgive episode names. Uh, and most of these are quite short. I think I only watched one 20-minute episode, and most of them were like
20
10
minute?
minutes.
They're all 10, 15 at most.
No, I found a 20-minute one about when Pat gets a post bus. You see that one?
No.
I'll go. That's my second episode. I'll go into that. So, basically, the first episode was so the I was going to call them kids and Postman Pat, and I think Ted the farmer is one of the ones I know. But so basically, the kids are looking for fossils, and um, the adults have plans to make a dinosaur climbing frame for the kids,
Right.
right? So and adults are trying to keep it as a secret from the kids, and they're trying to just do something a little bit special for them, and they kind of send the kids out to look for fossils, and they're just like, oh, picking up these like ammonites and devil's toenails and things like that. And they kind of cut in this wooden kind of dinosaur out, and they're making teeth, and they're making things, and they keep dropping things like the teeth they drop on the floor and stuff like that. And when the kids kind of stumble across it, they think it's like, oh, this is dinosaur teeth. So they're thinking, oh, there's actually a dinosaur, and they see the kind of outline of their dinosaur like over the hill kind of thing, where they're just actually moving the climbing frame. um and then they end up like the adults make their thing without the kids knowing, and they put it in the playground, and then they just go. to go and get the kids, but when they go and get the kids actually find it, and by the time they come back, they're all playing on it, and it's like, oh, that's brilliant. But yeah, it's just really short 10-minute episode, like kids finding
Yes,
fossils, adults making a
that's
thing,
what I'm talking about.
but it's just really nice as well. Everything's really sweet. Everything's really nice. Like all the families are very community based show.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
um, so my second episode was Postman Pat Takes the Bus. I think that was actually the name of the episode. This one was a 20-minute episode. And I watched this one purely because I was looking for an episode with the theme tune on it.
yeah.
I'm not sure if you found it, but not every, but the majority of episodes on YouTube had the theme tune cut out. And
Really? For Postman
yeah,
Pat? I
yeah,
was
and
singing along like there was no tomorrow.
I found honestly most of the ones I clicked on didn't. I had to search for episodes with a theme tune on, and this was one of them that I had it on, and I was like, surely that the theme tune of Postman Pat is one of the best bits about the show. No disrespect to the show, but the actual theme tune is one of the best bits about it. Without that,
Yeah,
it's not really Postman Pat. It's just, do you know what I mean?
yeah,
It
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
sets up the whole show. So anyway, so basically, Pat has this new thing. It's called the Post Bus, right?
Mhm.
And this is like kind of typical capitalism type of an idea where he has to drive a bus around the village and also deliver letters and collect the post.
Right.
So it's kind of all shoved into one bloke does several jobs kind of thing. And so he goes to like the reverend and he says like, oh, I think he collects his letters or delivers his letters, and he said, oh, I'm gonna drive into the what's the nearby town called again? Like,
Pencaster, isn't it?
yeah, so he's gonna drive anyway. He's gonna drive to the nearby town, right?
Yeah,
And the
the nearby
reverend's like,
town
oh,
of Pencaster.
yeah, so he's going to drive there to to drop the passengers off, and the reverend's like, oh, I'm going to be a minute, and Pat was like, what? Well, you ain't coming with me then, and basically just like ditches him. Um, and there was kind of a little bit of that, like, like if you come in now, I'll take you, but if you're not coming now, I'm not taking you. And it was kind of a bit like, um, the episode was kind of showing like if people start taking the biscuit, like you know,
Yeah,
you'll get told that, and it's okay to be told that. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I was acting a little bit off. Anyway, so obviously there's the classic delays on the way, and um, the whole kind of struggling to get their thing. But then they get to the town, and they said like everyone be back at 2. Um, and this is like what 45 minutes or something from now. And so first of all, I've written the names down here, so I'll try and say them properly. But so so Granny Dryden didn't come back. She's like the old kind of
yeah,
old
yeah,
lady. Then Miss Hubbard went to go and find her, but then Granny Dryden came back, and then Ted went to go and find Miss Hubbard, but then she came back, and it kind of went on for a little while, and then that was literally the kind of like ah ha ha ha, and then they kind of went back and the
yeah.
episode ended, and the final episode I watched was called the Go-Kart Race, and this was everyone. All the kids were kind of actually no kids and adults. Have you ever heard of the soapbox derby? Do you know
Yeah,
when like
yeah,
they all
yeah,
kind of build and they just go down a hill and basically
yeah.
that's kind of what they're doing, but it was like a village go kart race
Oh,
where
that's nice.
so so they had to build a go kart that was powered only by humans and like elements like wind or whatever.
Mhm.
No the rules, no engines, no like no nothing. So um and all of the adults decide that Ted's made these electric engines, so I'm going
Right.
to go and get one off him because they're quiet. And I think the policeman and 2 other adults take the engines off Ted and decide to put them in their little go karts. So Postman Pat and his kids are making one, and then the kid said, "Let's go and get an engine." And then Postman Pat explained to him that that's cheating. It's against the rules. You can't do that. You know, you might win, but it's not really a moral victory kind of thing.
Yeah,
So the kids don't, and Postman Pat gives them a sail, which they don't kind of use in the race, but then it puts pedals on it. But then the kids get a bit fed up because the adults aren't helping them. So they're like, "Oh, can we do something? And then they go and take over Postman Pat's one. So and they finish it off themselves. And they take it to the race, and obviously they get thrashed by everyone with the electric engines. Um, but one of the tricks is that Ted hasn't figured out how to turn off his engine. He can start the engine, but he can't turn it off. So
Yeah.
all of the all the adults kind of just can't stop going round and round and round. And then they kind of end up going towards this kind of cliff bit, like, it's like a gorge, and they were kind of heading there, and they couldn't stop. And then Postman Pat was like, "Right, stick the sail on, let's go and save them," because otherwise they weren't going to be quick enough. Now,
Yeah.
one thing
Yeah.
I was thinking, I was like, why don't you just go round the village again instead of going towards the cliff? Because you've gone around the village twice anyway. But that's by the by, I guess. And then, yeah, obviously, so Postman Pat saves the day. The policeman was the one that's heading for the cliff, and he kind of just nudges him out of the way, and he falls out, but he's okay. Um, and then when they kind of all go back, obviously the adults get disqualified. So the kids, although they came last and they were the slowest round, they stuck to the rules, so they win. And they get the cup, and that was the end of that
Oh.
episode. So it's
So,
like,
out
go
of
on.
interest, did you watch? Did you know if you were watching the 1981 version or the 1997 version?
So I believe that Postman Pat was probably 1997 because that looked better than the rest. The kids looking for fossils, I'm not
Yeah,
sure, but for sure the go-kart race was an old one because Jess looked like this old like cotton wool with a face stuck on it.
because I know you can tell. I think the 1981 was stop motion.
Yeah.
The lips weren't moving, but I know the later versions they had the lips moving, and then once you get to the CGI version, then it's all like all real and stuff.
Yeah, so I didn't watch any of the CGI, which is I'm not really that sad about because I feel a little bit,
Yeah,
I feel a little bit like it's kind of ruins it. But I don't know why though. I can't work out why it loses so much of its charm.
it
Um,
does. No, it really does.
it's just not the same. There's so much time
No,
and
it's
effort and
not.
it's soul put
It's
into
not.
like stop motion. So, and I think I've said
Yeah,
before many times, but stop motion has a special place in my heart, and it always will.
yeah,
To be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. Like it's classic, isn't it?
No, exactly. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed every episode of this, and it's definitely something that I'm going to be watching with my son in the years to come.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember asking you before we started recording. Did you actually watch any of these shows with the boy?
yeah, so yeah, I watched all three with him. And to be honest, he was more interested in the theme tunes. He likes that kind of music-y thing. And then when people start talking, he loses interest and goes and finds something to break or hide. But
Or climb?
yeah, exactly. um, but yeah, so he liked the theme tunes and he likes the characters. Oh, one thing that made me laugh is so he's got this new thing where he waves at people, and so
Ah.
when you say bye, he waves, and someone on the on one of the episodes, someone just said bye, and he just starts waving to the TV. So,
Brilliant.
so that I absolutely loved it, and it's kind of like
Oh,
melted my heart. But yeah, so it was really nice to watch it with him.
yeah. So is that your episodes?
Yeah, that's my episode's done for Postman Pat.
Okay. So I watched the very first episode in 1981, which was Postman Pat's Finding Day. So Katie and Tom, it's their birthday, and so they're expecting presents, they're expecting all sorts, and Pat is basically at the post office. He's collecting all the presents, he's collecting all the mail as he does every day. And so he's making all these stops. He's going to the school, he's hanging out with the kids for a little bit, playing hopscotch, which I found very, very funny. And one of the most endearing things about Postman Pat is that he's a klutz,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's not something that's always highlighted. But you'll see him falling over, you'll see him making a big mess. But it's one of those things where it's not hidden, but it's not something that's highlighted. I think it's something that viewers will just pick up on their own. So yeah, as he's going around, Katie is upset because she's missing her doll. And so Pat's like, you know what? I've delivered all the letters. I've got a bit of time. I'm gonna help you find the doll. So he's going all around the village. He's going to Ted's garage. He's going to the church. He's going back to the post office. Just going everywhere. Going, I'm looking for a doll. Have you seen it anywhere? So they're going, oh, she was here with her mum the other day. Maybe try this place. And then they go to a stand where he's like, you know what, let me just buy some chocolates for the kids. So he's buying chocolates and he finds the doll hidden underneath the chocolate somewhere. So he goes out and gets that. And then he gives the doll back to Katie. He has a slice of cake. He's having a bit of fun at the birthday party. And yeah, all's well. All's well that ends well. And then I watched episode 3, which is Postman Pat's secret birthday. So it's Pat's birthday. He doesn't want anybody knowing. He wants to keep it a secret, but everybody knows. And so he's wondering, how does everyone know? So he's going to the post office to pick up the mail for the day. And then he sees all these birthday cards and he's thinking, how do people know? I ain't told no one. And so the lady at the post office, Mrs. Goggins, she's like, it's a secret. Maybe you'll find out later. And so he's going all around the village. He's going all around. He's going to the church. And the reverend gives him like a special Bible. And Pat's like, how do you know it's my birthday? And then the reverend says something that might be deep, but it's not really. So someone's like, he who knows best, and all that philosophical stuff. And Pat's like, okay, I still don't know. One of the things I liked was, like with TV shows, they have a theme song,
Yeah.
and then they'll find ways to like mix up the instrumental. So every time he would go to the church, they would play the Postman Pat theme song, but in what's
Like
that?
an
What's
organ.
that? Organ. That's it. Yeah. So it'd be like doom 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 in the in the organ. It's great. But yeah, and so he's going around, and then I think he goes to Ted. And so Ted's like, have a look in the Pencaster Gazette. And so he's looking at it, and it's like a biography of Postman Pat. And they're saying, oh, hey, shout out to Postman Pat. It's his birthday. He's been doing this for a while, and all of that good stuff. And so he's like, oh, this is really, really good. The missus is going to be pleased to see this. So it's like, okay, yeah, you go on with your bad self. And then I watched one episode from the 1997 version, which was Postman Pat and the Mystery Tour. And so Mr. Pringle and the school children and Pat, they're going on this mystery tour on the Post bus. I didn't know it was a bus. I just thought it was a van. Because he's like ramming everybody in this van. And I'm thinking, how is there space for everybody?
So I must have watched the episode where they first got the post bus thing then. Maybe.
Yeah. Because it still looked like it was the same old Postman Pat van.
Yeah, it's the same colour, same like I think it might even have Royal Mail on the side of it. Red
Yeah.
thing. It does his post, but yeah, you can get passengers in it as well.
I did not know that. And so they're all going on this mystery tour. They're getting clues from Granny Dryden, Major Forbes, Miss Hubbard, Peter Fogg, Mrs. Goggins, and Ted. It's just basically a whistle stop tour around the village, really. I don't know if there was anything to this episode. It was just them going on a tour, taking the kids out, all that good stuff. And the last episode I watched was the 2006 version. So this was Postman Pat's spy mission. So once Pat has sorted out the mail and he sent it to everybody, he helps Ted because Ted has an accident and he sprains his ankle. So he's basically doing all the things that Ted would normally do on his day. And obviously, Pat, he's a bit of a klutz, so he's making heavy weather of all the tasks that Ted does on a regular basis. But yeah, he ends up figuring it out, and as he always does, he's there to save the day. He's part postman, part superhero. And yeah, I think you mentioned the spin-off series, which was Postman Pat Special Delivery Service. And just a quick thing about that is basically he gets a promotion. He gets moved to head of SDS and is now called upon to deliver anything. So he's making the lateral career move up. And yeah, so each episode is following Postman Pat on a special delivery mission. So he gets up to all sorts of capers, such as rescuing a runaway cow or delivering a giant ice cube. You also had the Postman Pat the movie in 2014. So this was a 3D computer animated comedy series, and it is all about Postman Pat, really. And it stars Jim Broadbent, Rupert Grint, David Tennant, Ronan Keating, Susan Durden, Sandra Tells, TJ Ramini, and Peter Woodward. And in 2006, Postman Pat was nominated for the Best Preschool Animation Series at the BAFTA Children Awards. Now, one of the things I really liked about Postman Pat, particularly the older version, was the music. Like they would have like really lovely background music. I think there was like an entire album released. I think the Postman Pat LP. So they would have songs and bits of music, such as Jess the Cat. So just a song dedicated to Jess, as you can hear in the background. It's an incredibly lovely and catchy song. And then you've got The Busy Day. So that's just a bit of music in the background, which will highlight Pat on a really, really busy day. And then you've got the traveling music, which is very, very iconic and it sticks to my memory as a kid. Like it's one of those bits of music that you will always, always remember. And then Ted's got his own song. And as I was saying about the Reverend, every time he would go into the church and they'd have the organ music, which I thought was great and funny. So yeah, this is Postman Pat, and I just remembered now that I used to have a little Postman Pat van as a toy as a kid.
No way.
Yeah, I had the red van and whatever, and I'd be like Postman Pat with the van. But no, that's Postman Pat, and it's a great show. Legacy-wise, it's incredibly iconic. Sold all over the world to different places and what have you. So yeah, that's it. Anything you want to add?
No, I just mean try and watch the theme tune or opening sequence without smiling. That's all I'm going to say about Postman Pat,
Yeah.
to be honest. It's
I
just
can't believe you couldn't find it.
No, I found it, but it was just that they were few and far between. Most of the episodes that came up for me in the search term was just the episode. No ending credits, no title sequence.
No, but
But loads of episodes on there.
found that all, and I found it no problem.
I don't know what you're doing with YouTube, man, but it's not the same as me. Every week I have trouble finding something.
It was all there. It was all there. And yeah, Postman Pat, that gets a double thumbs up from me and from you as well. So that's all I got to say about that. Right, let's go on to the head-to-head now. And let's start with Fireman Sam. And we're going to November 1987. And some of the things happening in the world. Gordon Gold issued US patent US 704583 for the laser, ending his 30-year battle to be credited as the inventor of the laser. Vincent van Gogh irises sells for a record $53.6 million at an auction. Zine El Abidine Ben Ali assumes the presidency of Tunisia. Three Men and a Baby was in the cinema. Let's see if you know this song. China in Your Hand by T-Pow was number 1 in the charts.
I absolutely not. Were you surprised though?
And producer Paul is back. The universe makes sense. The universe makes sense again. You have no idea of the song. I mean, to be fair, I didn't either. So there you go. There you go. And so we're talking now about Fireman Sam. So this was a British animated comedy children's series about a fireman called Sam and his fellow firefighters. And they all live in the fictional Welsh rural village of Pontypandy, which is a portmanteau of two real towns, Pontypridd and Tonypandy. And together, it makes Pontypandy. And so the original idea of the show came from two ex-firemen from London who took their idea to artist and writer Rob Lee, and then he developed the concept, and then the show was commissioned. And it obviously appeared on Welsh television as Sam Tan on S4C, and then the BBC would show it along with S4C in 1987. And it was sold to over 40 countries and has been used across the UK to promote fire safety. And so the characters and storylines were created by Rob Lee, who's an illustrator from Cardiff. And the program was made using stop motion. Yay, stop motion. And apparently you could take up to 4 days to produce 1 minute of this form of puppet animation, which it might explain why eventually they did move away from stop motion. Because it just takes too bloody long, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they have to do at least 24 frames for every second, right? And that's so that's 1,440 frames in 1 day, and that's only like what?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't do the maths. For 1 minute, yeah.
Yeah. And Fireman Sam has to this day translated into over 25 different languages, including Mandarin. And in the original series, all the character voices were performed by John Alderton. And then the later series used several actors' voices. And Fireman Sam is actually seen as some sort of a hero in the village, as it pertains to the theme song. Sam is the hero next door. And even though that the village itself, Pontypandy, is so small and so little activity, it has seen its fair share of fires, and Sam and his team will always be on hand to handle it. The vehicles at the fire station, you'll like this, included a 4-wheeled Bedford TK fire engine called Jupiter, a six-wheeled 1982 Range Rover rescue tender named
Nice.
Venus, and Trevor's bus, which is a 1985 Ford Transit Doormobile. And in 1988, the original series was nominated for a BAFTA Award for Best Short Animated Film, and the potential recipients were Ian Frampton and John Walker. And yeah, from 2005, the series episodes use more modern techniques of stop motion claymation, which include mouths that move with the dialogue. And then in 2008, the series was revamped, which saw the show convert to CGI. And Pontypandy is now a seaside fishing village instead of a village set deep in the hills or the valleys. And most of the locations have retained their appearances, but another change in the series is that the twins' parents appear for the first time, which is their mother was Bronwyn and fisherman father Charlie. Some of the things said about Fireman Sam. So the ABC website said of the series, and I quote, "All the characters blend together into an appealing mixture of fun and entertainment for children everywhere." And Common Sense Media recommended the 2003 series for ages 3 and up, praising it for its show on how to stay calm in a crisis and rely on a team to solve problems. The American website found that the distinctly Welsh characters, communities, and accents and expressions may pose some minor comprehensions. And there's a couple of controversial moments in Fireman Sam. One is hella controversial.
This is
Right,
Elvis,
so
isn't it?
hmm?
This is the Elvis moment. Slipping up on the paper.
But what was on the paper?
It was the Islamic holy book, the Quran.
Oh, so you know about this?
Yeah, and yeah, I'll go into it later. But yeah, you can say.
No, that was it was identified as pages from the Quran.
But it was actually like proper pages as well, wasn't it? It wasn't
Yeah.
like just some made up like Arabic thing with like the kind of symbols on it. It was
No, it
actually
was
a proper page.
yeah.
The animators went out of their way to do this.
Yeah, so chapter 67 verses 13 to 26 was identified by some viewers. Mattel, the production company, had apologized for the incident and they removed that episode from broadcast. And they basically said that it was Zing Zing. They were the animators and they were responsible for it. And so they were like, "We're not going to work with you lot anymore, and this is on you." And Mattel had said someone from the production company thought that they were putting in a random text. We have no reason to believe that it was done maliciously.
What a load of rubbish, man. That is like you don't accidentally put like a page of the Quran
Yeah,
on a thing with something
yeah,
to
yeah.
stand on.
I mean, that was the reason they gave, and they pretty much immediately stopped working with the animation company that would normally make the shows for them. So they were kind of like, oh, and because obviously people complained in their hundreds and thousands, and rightfully so, but they were complaining to the BBC, and by then it had moved to Channel 5. So BBC were like, oh, hey, Channel 5, here's a bunch of complaints, deal with it. So that's what they essentially did. And Fireman Sam was axed as a mascot for a fire brigade over fears that he could put women off from joining. And so, yeah, Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue Service said that the TV character was outdated and it did not reflect the message that it wanted to achieve. And then, obviously, in October 2017, the London Fire Commissioner, Danny Cotton, highlighted Fireman Sam in a campaign fighting sexism and promoting the gender neutral term firefighter. and she proposed that Fireman Sam should be renamed Firefighter Sam, and said that research showed that women were put off a career in the fire service because it is seen as a job for men. Now, I would love to get your opinion on this. And again, it would have been great to have a point of view of women, but it's just going to be us talking about it. Now, for
Oh, God.
me, if there is evidence that women are being put off applying for like firefighter roles and doing that line of work, and there is sufficient evidence that backs it up, then I'm actually all right with calling it Firefighter Sam.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to come at this from a different angle,
Go for it.
and I know this is going to get me into a bit of trouble. Um,
It's
but
fine.
I'm thinking, no, no, but from a practical point of view, firefighting isn't the easiest job in the world, right? I couldn't do it. It's a lot of physical strength needed to be a firefighter,
Yeah.
right? And on like going on average, kind of averaging it out, I think like the men are probably more strong than women, right? Just from
Okay.
a biological perspective, right? Therefore, the amount of women that would want to do this job are significantly less than quite a few other jobs,
Yeah.
right? Maybe
I
this
guess.
is
I
just
guess.
me. I'm just guessing here, but so I think that maybe like so there's a quite a small amount of people that I don't think being calling it a firefighter would it's not going to change the job in itself is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's not going to make it any more like if you call it firefighter, it's
Hmm.
not going to make the job any less physical and any less like it's a hard and it's not it's hard and it's like quite a scary job and it's like I mean there's not that many people
But
surely that
isn't
want
it
to.
the main is just you're tackling big fires?
No, but the
Because
thing is, you got to tackle big fires. You got to carry people. You rescue people. You got to see, like, I think, like, women in an emergency situation. Like, I don't know, but I'm sure that probably, maybe better than men at dealing with that sort of thing. Like, keeping calm and actually sorting a situation out. But like,
I would imagine
I,
so.
I'm just talking about physically heaving someone to over your shoulder. That's all I'm talking about. Like, and for me, I wouldn't be able to do that. So that's like me out of the door as well. But I'm just saying, like, on average,
Yeah.
like I said. Do you know what I mean? I've kind of,
Yeah. Yeah.
I, I'm trying to kind of navigate this minefield because I don't want to upset anybody. But I just think that you know,
It's
I
it
don't know.
is it is interesting, but like I said, if the aim is to encourage more women to get involved in this line of work, where it's not necessarily, heaving like bodies and things like that over your shoulders, carrying dead weight and all that sort of stuff, but if it's like ostensibly putting out fires and driving a
Yeah,
truck and being
yeah, but
part of all of that.
when you're going for the job, you can't say, oh, I can't do this one because I can't carry that person. You have
Well,
to
no,
do it.
no,
You
no,
have to be able to do it all in one
yeah,
go, right?
yeah.
You can't say like
But I
I'm
would
only going to put out
imagine
fires.
if they did apply, they could do that. Otherwise,
Yeah,
why would they apply?
but no, of course you can't just say, oh, I'm only going to do this bit of a job.
Yeah,
You have to be able to do it all.
yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's,
people could die, right?
of course, it's life and death. But
Yeah.
my thing is that even from a physical point of view, okay, there might not be as physical as the men, and there might not be as big or whatever, but their capacity to do the job, if they want to do it and they can prove that they can do it,
No, yeah, exactly. So if you can do it,
that's it.
but yeah, no, crackle. But what I'm
Man,
saying is that
woman. couldn't care less.
Absolutely, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. So, like, I'm taking myself out of the category that would be able to do that job because it's far
Yeah,
too physical for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, and for one, I'm
far
too,
too physical for me and all.
and I wouldn't be able to deal with the stuff that they see and do on a daily basis. That's just like not. I couldn't
Yeah,
handle it. But the thing is, you've got to be made of quite hardy stuff to be a firefighter, right? You have to see car crashes, people burning in buildings, and it's really gruesome stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And I mean, like, is taking it the is the fact that it's called a fireman or a firewoman or something like that. I
I
guess
mean,
if it's called a fireman for everything, then yeah, I kind of get the point. But if like to keep it, is that going to put you off if you're?
but what she was saying was, look, I've got evidence. I do want to encourage more women to join the firefighter service,
Yeah,
but I can't get them to come through because the show is called Fireman Sam. Now,
I
the
don't. I
thing that
can't.
I
You can't blame
disagree,
it all on a
I mean,
cartoon,
yeah,
surely.
I was gonna say the thing I disagree with is that he's just one character. He
Yeah,
just so happens to be called Fireman Sam because a couple of blokes in London had an idea of a show about a guy who lives in a small town and he's a firefighter and he's the hero next door. So
yeah.
that's where that comes from. But I don't know. I mean,
I mean, it's
because for me,
tricky from
Fireman Sam is hella iconic.
absolutely.
If you want a woman firefighter, why don't you go out and make a show?
Yeah.
Do it.
I mean, it's easy for me to say as a white male, right? Because I basically own the world, right? That's what they
Of
say.
course.
Um, so sitting here as a white male talking about these issues, it's hypocrisy gone mad. Um, but the thing is, like, I if with a job like that, is it going to put you off saying? But I agree. Maybe like I don't think taking I don't think like acting a show because it's called a Fireman Sam because it's just I don't think that you can.
I don't think they want to act this show. They just want to change the name.
But I think that that's just like because it's circumstantial. I don't think that's the right way to go. Like you said, make a new show then. Like I
Yeah,
think, or introduce another character. But the name of the show is named after a man who is a firefighter, right? And
right.
his name is Sam. So that's like Fireman Sam. It all fits. And I don't think changing the name of a kids' TV show is
Yeah,
necessarily the right way to go. But like you said, perhaps making
I'd
another
like
show.
to. I'd like to see the numbers. I'd
And
like to
plus,
see the numbers of that she's referring to. I
yeah,
want to see what she's talking about because if it is just a case of okay, because this show's iconic, we're just gonna piggyback off Fireman Sam, and then we can maybe change the name, and then it will be different. But I do think one way around it is go make a show about a woman firefighter. Doesn't
yeah.
have to necessarily be about Fireman Sam. And wasn't correct me if I'm wrong. There's a woman firefighter in Fireman Sam,
In the new one, the old.
old and new.
I didn't see any women in the one that
I
I saw,
did.
to be fair.
I saw it in the old version. I saw it in the new version.
No, how many episodes? I watched one, two, three, four, five, six, 6 episodes, and I didn't see any women.
I
To
think
be
her name
fair.
is Penny. Penny
Oh,
Morris.
also one thing was one before I forget because I nearly forgot my last point on the matter
Yeah.
is that Firefighter Sam doesn't sound as good as Fireman Sam. It's nowhere near as catchy.
No.
You'd have to change your theme tune. You'd have to change everything.
I know. Firefighter Sam and his engine runs. Firefighter Sam, you could only know. Sam is the hero next door. I don't know. Whatever.
I mean, yeah, yeah,
Anyway, some of the characters of Fireman Sam. Obviously, you got Sam, the hero next door. You got Elvis Cridlington, Basil Steele, who's like the station officer. Then he gets to be called Norris in the new CGI series. You got Penny, like I said, who was the woman firefighter. You got Trevor, who's the black guy. I was watching that. I was like, yes, my brother. Cheese. That's what I thought watching that. You got Bella Lasagna, who's the Italian cafe owner. You got Norman Price, who's like the naughty kid. You got his mother, Dillis. And then you got the twins, Sarah and James. And then other stuff, you got Bentley the robot, who is a mechanical master chef. So do you want to get into episodes?
Yeah, so I've got quite a few episodes I watched of Fireman Sam, and just to preface
Ooh.
this, as I absolutely loved Fireman Sam as a kid. It was like my show. This and Budgie the helicopter was like my show.
Oh,
Um,
Budgie, the little helicopter.
yeah, so
Yes.
this is this little tiny helicopter, and they're all part of a crew of like rescue helicopters. And it was cool. But this show was like really good. So obviously, I had to go through. I heard about the controversy that was involved in the show because I loved this show so much, and to the point where there's photos of me with a bucket on my head as a kid, and I used to pretend to be Fireman Sam and stuff. Um, and I absolutely loved it so much. So when it got involved in this controversy, I was a little bit heartbroken, really. Like, and I'm
Yeah,
kind of
me too, actually.
and I'm kind of glad it wasn't in the writers or anything like that. It was just some animators thing because it wasn't like wasn't like part of the show. It was just some kind of paper that goes up in the air, right? So I had to kind of like grapple with the fact that so two things on this kind of watching it for this show was firstly it was a CGI, which is like the new one. So I watched the new one first. So I wanted to get that out of the way. So I watched it was CGI and it was embroiled in this controversy. So
Maybe I should have done that.
I got it out of the way because I was a bit like I don't want this to be completely tainted for me. Because I did love it so much as a kid.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, if not my favorite show as a child. So I went straight in with Series 9, Episode 1,
Okay.
and um, so there was a sheep stuck on a roof. Fireman Sam goes to rescue it.
Oh, I watched
Uh,
this.
yeah, I think.
Danger
Oh yes,
falling sheep.
yeah. so so it was told to who was that other firefighter? What was his name?
Elvis.
Oh, so it was Elvis, was it? You sure?
I'm sure it was Elvis.
No, it's Norman. No, who's Norman? No, Norman's
Norman's
his
the
little
little
boy.
boy, Norman Price. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
Elvis and Penny.
Arnold. It was Arnold. It was Arnold
Arnold.
Elvis. Yeah. Anyway, so say Elvis, right? So Elvis is on the roof, and it's
Norman.
such what Norman?
Norman's on the roof with a sheep. I mean, not roof,
What?
mountain.
No, this is a different episode then,
Or
because
is it a
this one's
different
on a.
episode then?
This is on a roof. The sheep is on a roof,
Oh,
and
okay.
so basically, so I'm going to say Arnold because I'm pretty sure it's Arnold. So Arnold's shouting at the sheep, and he's
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, come here, come here, come here," and they're like saying, "Don't shout at it because you'll scare it." And they had to kind of teach him to speak really nicely towards the animal, and then like kind of coax it so it doesn't hurt itself. Anyway, Sam gets it off the roof. So Norman and Mandy. So at the same time, so basically, there's Norman and Mandy, and there's Sarah and James, and they're going to they're basically racing to the peak of this kind of hill, and this is kind of like a scouts thing where they have to get the badges, read the maps, and do the kind of exercise properly. But Norman didn't want to read the map; he just wanted to get up there as quickly as possible to beat Sarah and James. But Sarah and James read the map, and they did it kind of safely, So Norman starts doing all sorts of dangerous things, like runs down a hill, ends up falling over. Then he gets on his horse with no saddle. Mandy's like, "Don't do it," but he does it anyway. The horse just bolts, then jumps over this fence and gets stuck in the mud. Meanwhile, Sarah and James have taken their kind of safe route around, and so basically, when the horse gets stuck in the mud, they have to get Fireman Sam and the crew to come and get the horse out, and they use Arnold comes in and starts talking to the horse nicely to calm the horse down, and they end up getting a crane to lift the horse out, and meanwhile they've already pulled Norman off. So that was the first episode I watched, and now just to see if there's any conspiracy theories, I watched Series 9, Episode 11.
Oh my god! Really?
Yeah, it was called Fiery Football. It's actually quite a really good episode. And so all the kids
Series 9, Episode 11.
Yeah.
Sure.
So all the kids are going to a football match. And Norman's looking forward to it. He wants to go and watch. So it's like a kind of like a community football match where like the fire crew are playing the local team and stuff. And Norman's looking forward to it, but his mum tells him he has to go and help Bella in the restaurant. He's not too happy about it, and he's not paying attention to the customers. He keeps dropping food on them, and like being generally a pain in the neck. Then he has to go and deliver some pizzas, but he takes the pizza box and also some embers that are in the pizza oven. He puts in the pizza box by mistake. Then that sets on fire, and he drops the pizza box on the hill, and the hill sets on fire. So meanwhile, the football match is going on, and Station Officer Steele is the coach of the firefighters. So he decides that he's going to just join in. It seems like everyone can have a crack. He just goes and shoots and scores, and that counts as a goal. And so when the hill gets set on fire, Bella's restaurant gets evacuated, and they'll kind of call off the match. And then Bella and Norman, when it's all kind of they say, like, when there's a hill fire, you got to be below the flames, not above the flames, because it can spread up the hill really quickly. They managed to beat the flames, and they start playing the match again. And Bella and Norman are watching on the sideline because the restaurant's kind of out of action. And then the ball comes to Bella, and she just belts it straight in the back of the net. And it counts as a goal as well.
Mamma mia!
And then, but what they don't realise is that it's the winner that buys dinner. So although they won a football match, they still got to buy dinner.
Oh.
Then on to Series 10, Episode 13, and it was James and the Giant Pumpkin. And it's kind of a vegetable competition. It's quite a basic episode where the kids have grown a giant pumpkin and they want to get to the show. James is pulling a cart like a horse, and like Norman tells, use my go-kart, and then James has to pull it like a horse. It's quite funny. And then it goes down a hill, and it kind of just like just goes on a kind of runaway cart thing, and the pumpkin goes off the cliff. And meanwhile, Station Officer Steele has been given a guinea pig to look after, and he keeps losing it, and it goes to the vegetable show and eats all the vegetables. That's about it. That's for that episode. Then I decided that was enough for the CGI. So I went back to the old shows, and I watched Series 1, Episode 1, I think. It was a hurricane episode. I forget the actual name of the episode, but yeah. So first notes on this is that I love stop motion. And then I didn't realize, but it's shot. Obviously, it would be, I guess. And it's kind of. I wanted to make a note of like what you were saying earlier about how long it takes. So not only was it shot in stop motion, it was also shot on film. Obviously, it was, because there was no digital, right? And it got me thinking. I was like, now if we want to do a stop motion film, it will take us a very long time, right? Mm-hmm. Snap, move, snap, move, snap, move, and so on. Imagine going snap, move, snap, move, snap, move, developing your photographs at the end of the day, and they're all crap.
Oh no!
Do you know what I mean? So like, it adds a whole new thing to it, like, because you can't see what you've done until you've gone through the whole developing process.
Yeah,
I just thought that was like incredible. Anyway, so this there's a hurricane and the phones go out, so Norman gets sent out. Why does he? Oh, because he's been watching TV all day, so he gets sent out to play. Sarah and James go to the park to fly a kite.
Yeah.
Trevor shows him how to fly it and breaks it. The kite flies off and gets stuck on a roof. Sam gets it down but nearly falls. And Mr. Evans has hurt his arm but gives the kids their kite back. And that's kind of the end of that episode.
Yeah, I made a note of, I don't know, I think Bella must have seen something and she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, Mamma Mia, the kite, the kite, the kite." And then Norman's mum, Mrs. Price, is like, "Oh, Bella, do you have to be so dramatic?" That made me laugh so much when
I
she
do
said
remember that
that.
bit actually. I was just thinking it was a very Italian kind of
Yeah.
very typical Italian accent. So I went straight on to episode 2 and then episode 3 after that. But so this one was about barn fire. Sarah and James are picking potatoes for Bella on a hot day. Normal gets sent fishing and catches nothing. The barn sets on fire. Do you know, like when the hay is in the thing, in the barn. So it sets on fire, and when the fire engine's there, they kind of run out of water from the pond. So they've run out of water, so they have to go and get more water from the pond. Obviously, they find a local water source. Um, and Norman's asleep, and he wakes up and he thinks there's a bite in the rod because they put the hose in the water, and he catches an old plug, and then he thinks he's pulled the plug out of the pond because the pond water's going down, and he's got a plug on the end of his rod. It was quite funny. That's basically the end of that episode. The final episode I watched was called Trevor's Training. So Trevor gets stuck down the drain, and Sam goes and gets him out. Norman is playing with a dummy in Bella's house, asking for the fire brigade to rescue the dummy. He's like, going, help me, like, tricking everybody. Then Norman actually nearly falls out the window himself, and he gets rescued for real. And they go back to the station, and Elvis was cooking at the beginning of the episode, and he's cooking this like smash. I don't know, like the instant mashed potato, and he's saying, "Oh, be careful because last time you cooked, we had to get a new stove." And you come back, and the whole station's a mess because Elvis has wrecked the place. So they all have to go to Bella's to eat, and that's the end of that episode, and that's the end of the thingies I watched.
Oh, lovely. So, okay, what I watched. So we spoke about the kite. So episode 8, Disaster for Dinner. So it starts with Elvis cooking again, but this time he's cooking a curry, and it's not very good. There's some like bad odors, and so Sam is at home and he's like, "Right, I'm gonna see if my new robot Bentley can cook up something as opposed to what Elvis is cooking up." But he doesn't realize it that he needs to switch it off. So he leaves for work. So he's going into the station, whatever. They're meant to be going to Bella's to do a fire drill practice. But then there's a real fire because the twins, Sam and no, Sarah and James, they go to their uncle's house and they wanted to visit him, and then they realize that the robot is on fire, so they call Fireman Sam and the gang, and they put the fire out, and so they get back to the drill, where I think they're going to pretend Norman is hurt, and they're going to try and save him, and they're going to try and do it in as quick time as possible, and make sure that their response time is also on point. So yeah, that was that episode. The first of the newer episodes that I watched. So it was Danger Falling Sheep. So Norman wants to conquer Pontypandy Mountain, but then Wooly, which is like a lamb that gets scared off by one of the twins' friend. She, I don't know what she had in her hand. It might have been like a party, one of those like that you
Oh
use
yeah,
for a birthday
yeah.
party. I don't know what it was called
Don't
actually.
actually know what they're called, but I know what you
Yeah,
mean.
party popper. I don't know, whatever. So she uses that, scares the life out of this miserable sheep, and so the sheep goes up to the mountain, and so Norman and the sheep are stuck on the mountain. So it's up to Sam to save the day, and so he's using someone who has like a helicopter. I think it's an Australian guy, one of the newer characters, and so they both get Norman and they save the sheep, and so that was that episode. And the last episode I watched was this one of the CGI episodes, Hearts on Fire. So Dillis, Norman, and Trevor are going camping, and Norman's basically telling scary stories, and it's spooking Dillis out. She sees the sun going down, but it's hidden underneath the trees. And so she's thinking, oh, that is an epic fire. We need to call Sam and everyone now. So they're calling Sam. And then Trevor's like, it's a false alarm. It's a false alarm. It's just the sun going down. But then because Trevor left the fire, he left the fire. And so that fire that he sort of lit, it goes up in flames along with the tent. And then that all goes up in flame. And so I think the lighthouse man that's running the lighthouse, he's like, Sam, don't turn around, because he's thinking, oh, it's a false alarm. He's like, it's not a false alarm, there's a real fire. And so Trevor's like, I'm so sorry, it's not like me. I used to be in a Boy Scout. And Sam's like, hey, don't worry about it. We got rid of the fire. It's all good in the hood. And yeah, that was all the episodes I watched of Fireman Sam.
Nice.
Yeah, so any last thing to say?
No, I loved it as a kid, and I know the next show's got it as well, but this stop motion thing, like, it's so nostalgic and it's so like so charming.
It's a British thing as well, isn't it? I don't know of any American stop motion cartoons. Although I'm sure they use that technique.
I'm sure they do, but I mean, I can't think of even one, to be honest. Um, oh, maybe the Lego Movie was one of the biggest stop motion things ever, right?
I guess.
Um, but that's the only one I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be something to look into and research.
Yeah.
Now we finally come on to Joshua Jones, and this show came out in September 1991 again. But for the newer listeners, some of the things that happened. Nelson Mandela was chosen as president of the African National Congress. The US trial of former Panamanian leader Manuel Noriega begins. US President George H.W. Bush decides to end full-time B-52 bombers. Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare is in the cinemas. And Love to Hate You by Erasure was in the charts.
No, never heard of it. No, never heard of it.
So that was a one-off then, with you knowing Japanese boy.
Yeah, flash in the pan, I'm afraid.
Oh, good stuff, good stuff. And so we go on to Joshua Jones. So this was again British stop motion children's television series produced by Bumper Films, and they also produced Rocky Hollow and Fireman Sam. It's about a cheerful traveller named Joshua Jones who lived on a canal boat with his canine companion Fairport, and so his job is to transport goods along the canals, but he's always using his boat to help out others in a crisis. So he's driving or taking trips up and down Clearwater Canal, and he's carrying out tasks for the folks at Bigot's Wharf, and he's having a general fun time. So some of the characters, you got a retired Indian admiral called Bapu Carrier, and his wife is Dakasha Carrier. You've got Wilton Cashmore, who's like the get rich quick businessman. You got Joe Lasky, who is like a Hungarian farmer who owns a horse named Trojan. You got Ravi Carrier, who is Mrs. Carrier's son, and he's the admiral's grandson. And you got Fiona, who's like his best mate, and her dad is Wilton Cashmore, as I said before. He works with Sharon, who's like a dizzy blonde girl who owns a catering van, and you got her lazy boyfriend Spanner, and you got Daphne Peacock, who's like the vet who takes care of sick and injured animals. The theme song was sang by Mel Pope, who also did the theme song for Fireman Sam. That's why it's incredibly catchy. I absolutely love this theme song, and you would be forgiven if you had never heard of this show.
I have never heard of it.
So this isn't just a British thing. So you get loads of British people who had never ever had heard of Joshua Jones, except for me. So British listeners and international listeners, you all have something in common, or a lot of you will have this in common, that you had never heard of this show. And I think it's incredibly slept on. This is such a fun, wholehearted show. I did think that I was the only person who watched it because it used to come on CBBC. When did it used to come on? So it would come on just before all the main cartoons would come on.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm like, I'm just going to watch it anyway because it started. And yeah, so I would be the only one who watches Joshua Jones. And by the time all the other kids got home, it would have already come on. So maybe that's one reason why people didn't know this show or didn't watch this show. But I knew. So what did you think of Joshua Jones then? This is a new show for you.
Yeah, so I didn't write many notes about it.
Yeah, I
And
didn't
it was
either
it,
actually.
it was coming up against like uh Fireman Sam for a start. Um so what one thing I found it difficult was to kind of keep a grasp on who the characters were.
Yeah,
And also like what is this place where I mean Grimspool made me laugh like quite a lot. But
might be a portmanteau of
uh,
Grimsby and Liverpool.
Blackpool. Oh, I was gonna say Blackpool, but yeah,
Oh,
you're probably right with
maybe the
Liverpool. To be fair.
accents.
Um, uh, and yeah, so obviously they're going around the canals, and I was like, this, what is this place where first of all you can just quickly nip around everywhere in the canals? It's quite amazing. Everywhere that he goes, maybe it's just coincidental that everyone he talks to lives on the canal.
Well, as the theme song says, his boat will take him to all the nicest places he goes.
Yeah, I mean it's quite. I think the whole thing about having a little narrowboat is quite cool. Um,
Yes.
in the locks and
I
things
wanted
like
to be
that. Like
Joshua Jones when I was a kid. I wanted to be him. That was my dream.
it was such a cool thing.
Yeah. Just driving about on a boat. That's your job, your income, and you get to see all the lovely places.
One thing I did notice about this show is like the insults are quite funny that they give to each other. I found that like quite refreshing. Like I think in one of the first insults is in the first episode, and he's just Spanner makes Josh fall in a canal, and he calls him as thick as the doorstep sandwiches he eats or something like that. But yeah, so I enjoyed that. Generally like a really good show again, like this like kind of basic puppety, uh, stop motiony kind of things, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's not really not nothing. There's not much not to like it at all,
No,
to be honest.
it's Welsh
Uh,
as well, like
and there
Fireman
was
Sam.
yeah, and there wasn't that many episodes of it, right? It was quite a
No, it's about
short-lived thing. So
10 episodes, and it about 8-9 minutes each episode.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's not a very good thing. I mean, I'm definitely one of those people that had never seen it or heard of it. So,
Yeah.
um, right. Anything you want to say before we dive into the
I wanted
episode?
to say that this was Welsh, so you could probably hear the Welsh version of Joshua Jones in the background. Again, I like the Welsh version of the theme song. I like the English version. But yeah, it was like Fireman Sam. It's Welsh, probably set in a nice little place in Wales where you can drive a narrow boat on the canal. So yeah, that's. I just wanted to say that. Yeah, you might as well just jump into episodes.
Right. Straight in then. So, um, again, Spanner makes Josh fall into the canal and he calls him as thick as a doorstep sandwich, which is like hilarious. Fiona takes Trojan, who's a horse, and I found that quite clever, quite good. Like Trojan horse,
Yeah,
and out for a ride. Anyways, eating the flowers. The admiral's planting flowers, and he's like, and the horse is just basically eating them. The horse gets shooed, like he kind of shoos the horse away. I can't remember his name, Mr. Carrier, Mr.
yeah,
Admiral
yeah,
Carrier. Shoos the horse away, and the horse falls into the canal. And Fiona calls Daphne, the vet, to come and
yeah.
help. But Joshua comes to save the day, like with his narrowboat and his kind of winching process.
Hmm.
Um, um, Daphne's car breaks down on the way, but she gets there after the rescue. But she gets to check on the horse anyway. Yeah, and the horse gets rescued by Josh, and that is episode 1.
Which was called Horseplay.
I didn't. Yeah, again, I'm sorry, but the names have escaped me of each episode. So I watched three. I watched 3 in a row. Went on to series 1, episode 2, and Ravi's gone on an expedition. And they're calling. Sorry, they're looking after a parrot called Boomer, which I thought was a really funny name.
I watched this one,
Um,
Boomer.
uh, and
It's called
it was
Boomer.
great. Yeah, oh, it was called Boomer. It was a great episode. So the parrot escapes, and the kids go on a boat trip up the canal. Not like a narrow boat, but like a little rowing boat.
Hmm.
And Josh comes and they obviously he's in his barge always, and they try and catch the parrot, but he's very close to it, and the dog barks and scares it off. I don't know what the name of the dog is, to be honest. Um, then Boomer ends up next to the kids on the boat. Um, but they kind of go down a weir, which is like a little kind of drainy, fast flowing bit of water.
Yeah.
Um, and then they get rescued by Josh again. And then when they get back, Boomer comes back on his own, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember why it's called Boomer. It's because his name's actually Boomerang, and he always comes back." Yeah, so that's quite sweet, like
Yeah.
harmless bit of, harmless pun. So, series 1, episode 3, I went on to next, and Joshua had to deliver a tin of paint for some reason. And one thing I found quite funny was that I'm sure it was Ravi's wife that was working in it, working with someone, and she's kind of like getting the tray
Ravi's
ready.
the little
And
boy.
yeah, what's his mum's name? The wife.
His mum. I've just got Mrs. Carrier.
So Mrs. Carrier, I'm sure it's her that's working on this like a silver service anyway. And then Mr. and Mrs. Bigot are coming to tea,
Yeah.
and so she gets sent home, and I was like, I really hope that's why. I think it is, because um because uh so I was trying to think. Should I look at my so basically anyway, so I can't remember, the lady's having a kind of tea party,
Hmm.
and 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 then there's who's the kind of comedy white girl.
Oh, Sharon.
So, yeah, so Sharon basically is replacement for Mrs. Carrier, right? But so
Sounds
she's
about
obviously
white.
she's yeah, exactly. She's white, but she's not prim and proper. And this is what it's the woman kind of got a bit crazy about this. Ends up raining, so they'd never get to go. So Spanner's helping with Ravi and a white girl. Spanner drives a tractor too fast and loses some hay. He's kind of like working on a tractor thing. Mr. Lasky, I don't know who Mr. Lasky is, but I've written that he fell off a
Oh,
tractor.
he's the farmer,
He's a farmer.
Hungarian
Yeah,
farmer.
yeah, yeah. So he falls off the tractor and he kind of like hurts himself and he's not saying anything. And they're all like, "Oh, you okay? You okay?" And he just turns around. And he goes, "He's because he get mad with Spanner for driving
Yeah.
like an idiot." And he just goes, I'm not gonna talk because I'll swear if I do." So I found that quite funny, and that's kind of the end of that
Yeah,
episode. But yeah, I found really, really good, man. Like this is another one of these shows that kind of just come up and surprise you.
I know. Well, not for me because I had heard of Joshua Jones and I did watch it as a kid.
Yeah,
Is that all the episodes you watched?
yeah, that's the episodes I watch. So your go.
Right. So we've spoken about Horseplay and Boomer. I watched Spook. So Ravi and Fiona, they believe that there's a ghost in Joe's barn. The episode, it starts with, I think they wanted to like bring some goods over, and Joshua was like, "Oh, you can borrow some petrol that I've got or diesel," because Mr. Lasky had run out. But he was like, "Oh no, don't do it. We'll just carry everything by hand." So they all just put it all in the in Mr. Lasky's garage. So they just carry it by hand and they use the pram. And so Ravi and Fiona are like, let's have a look in the barn and we'll see if there's a ghost inside. And so they're all looking around or whatever, and then they see a shadowy person coming in, and it looked like he was trying to steal the tractor, but it was Joshua. He was putting diesel in the tractor, so he'd thought maybe I'll do it in the dead of the night, so then I won't be interrupted, and Mr. Lasky won't say no. And then the kids just like, it's the ghost, it's a ghost, it's a ghost. And they're like, we'll try and stop him. So they just like mounted themselves onto Joshua and they're like, we got him, we got him. And they're like calling out for Mr. Lasky. And then Joshua's like, oh, look, it's just me. I just wanted to put some diesel into Mr. Lasky's tractor. And the final episode I watched was the Silver Key. So there's a lot competition, and Admiral Carrier he's determined to win. He's making his garden look all fancy and nice. But then they have like Joshua and Mr. Lasky. They have a problem with a runaway tire because they're trying to put the tire. So Joshua has to go and deliver something to the city, and Mr. Lasky's like to Joshua, please help me move this tire because I need to move it. But Joshua's like, look, I need to make a delivery to the city to Mr. Bigot or Mr. Cashmore, whatever one of their names. And so he's like, look, I got to make this delivery, but he's like, all right, fine, I'm gonna help you. So he's trying to move this tire, but this tire just goes on a mad one and just runs over Mr. Carrier's garden. It looks a mess, but then Mr. Carrier's like, "All right, don't worry about it. Y'all go to the city and y'all go and make your delivery." And he's supposed to be delivering I think it was like an engine for a boat or something. And so Spanner actually gets it over because Josh was thinking, "Oh no, someone stole it because it's not in his boat." But Spanner was working on it, and he actually takes it over to Mr. Cashmore, And Mr. Cashmore's like, what's going on? What's going on? This better not be one of your tricks, Joshua. But he's like, it's not. And they're all saying, oh, to Mr. Cashmore's daughter, who's Fiona, she's like, oh, aren't you going to say thank you to Joshua? And he's all like, I don't really want to say thank you. And Joshua's like, you don't have to say thank you. Don't worry about it. And he's like, thank you. I don't have to say thank you. And so they go back to the village, and Mr. Carrier wins his lot competition because he manages to make like a nice little garden thingy using the like the Navy or the Admirable logo or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he wins. And yeah, that's how the episode ends, and that's how Joshua Jones ends. I really liked it. I thought it was great. Loved it as a kid. Loved watching it now. Loved the theme song. Loved the Welsh theme song. I'm going to leave it all on, so I don't care if y'all sue me. Take my money. You want cash, check, whatever. Take it all. But yeah, so let's pick. What are you going to go with?
So I've got to go with Fireman Sam. Even though it was embroiled in controversy, I'm going with Fireman Sam because of how much it meant to me when I was a kid.
Yeah, go with the inner child.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Joshua Jones on that same principle because I feel like not a lot of people know the show. Hopefully they will, listening to this episode. And I felt like it was slept on very, very much when I was growing up. And I don't think it got the appreciation and the love that it deserved. And I honestly believe that it is as good as Fireman Sam. In my eyes, I think it's better. And here I am giving Joshua Jones the appreciation and the love that it so richly deserves. And we got to pick our favorite theme songs out of the three. So ranking it from 3 to 1 from the shows today.
Oh, so this is tricky because, like, what do you go with? Do you go with most memorable, most, the thing that gets stuck in your head? It's a tricky one.
I mean, you got to put all of that into account.
No, so I think it's got to be Postman Pat, simply because it's probably the most iconic. Fireman Sam, because I love Fireman Sam to death. And then Joshua Jones, only because it's a new guy. That's the only reason.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I'm going to do it backwards. So number 3, I'm going to say Fireman Sam. I was mulling over both of them, but I'm going to say number 2, Joshua Jones and Postman Pat. It has to be Postman Pat. It's just so iconic.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And on that iconic note, I'm going to bring it to an end. First episode of Yesterday's Capers in self-isolation. And there's plenty more where they came from, so stay tuned. We're available wherever you get your podcast from, so give us a listen. On the socials, we're on Yesterday's Capers 1 on Instagram. It's Yesterday Capers on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram at Abdullah_Moallim. You can follow me on Twitter at Abdullah Moallim, all one word. Give me a holler, give me a shout, especially if you're a woman. We'd love to hear from you. And join us again next week for another episode of Yesterday's Capers.